Okay, so today I'm going to be talking a little bit about a lake called Trout Lake, which is in the French River area of Ontario. Just to give you some background, if you've never been to the French River before, it's absolutely breathtaking. And the reason why is it's got a lot of exposed, rugged, glaciated rock. And it's heavily forested as well. So there's a nice mix between these wild, big, jagged rock cliffs and heavy, thick forests, which means the water bodies, which are the lakes and the rivers, they have the same features, and they're super deep, they're super dark, and they're just an incredible it's just an incredible place to visit. Whether you're into fishing or not, check out the French River area. One thing to note with all the rocks is when you get snagged good. So it's probably good to upgrade your gear. I'm not typically somebody who uses a heavy leader or heavier gear. Because I knew there was muskie in this lake, I geared up, and I'm glad I did. Because when you snag, you're going to be happy you have heavier gear on. So, history lesson. The French River is about 110 kilometers wide, and it runs from Lake Nipissing down to Georgian Bay. At the end of the day, the French River is basically the dividing line between Northern Ontario and Southern Ontario. And it was a transportation corridor by the Algonquin peoples, and the Ojibwa named it the French River because it was associated with a lot of French explorers in the 17th century. So yeah, Trout Lake, let me just pull it up here. It's about 16 kilometers long, and it's only about half a kilometer wide, which is actually not that wide, you know, especially when you're like looking at it when you're there. We stayed at a place called Owl's Nest Lodge, which was a really nice place. It was, you know what, you couldn't ask for anything more. Good value, and really nice owners who had, moved out of the big city life to run and operate a lodge that, you know, some people used for fishing in the warmer months, and I think they mentioned that it's also part of the snowmobile route in the winter. So either way, pretty cool. We were there just to get away. I went up with my dad and my brother. Every couple of years we go somewhere and just explore new water. And this was no different. So we decided to go to Trout Lake, which our primary concern is to just, you know, spend time together, do a little fishing. And there's a lot of fishing opportunities on this lake. You got largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, there's pickerel, there's lake trout, pike, there's muskie, there's a lot of panfish. It's stuffed with panfish. You know, the lodge had a boat rental, so we had a lot of fun. It took us some time to figure out the lake. You know, we're used to more shallower lakes with a lot of structure. This was the type of lake where, let me just see if I can pull up a dock or something here. So, okay, let's look at this one for example. You're talking like 5 feet off the dock, 10 feet off the dock. It's like 40 feet deep, which is pretty wild when you think about it. But this goes back to some of that glaciated rock, a lot of cliff edges, a lot of just really hard bottom lake with not a lot of structure that's visible. Luckily, I brought my fish finder with me to help us kind of figure things out. Normally, when I get to a lake I don't really know about, I like to troll and just kind of figure out where the fish are. So we trolled a lot of these edges, you know, throughout the whole lake here, kind of keeping along right tucked up next to the shoreline. And I'll be honest, we didn't have a lot of success doing that. So, you know, the hunt was on. We were really trying to figure out where were the fish holding in a lake like this. There was some bays, you know, that had lily pads where we did okay. But to summarize, where we had the most success for any of you who may be interested in coming up here and doing some fishing was really along these islands and the points. So we would drift or anchor and fish towards some of these points, casting lures, casting some live bait, and you know, spinners we used, Rapalas, hard-bodied baits. There wasn't anything, I would say, even from a color-wise, that stood out. You know, I used natural colors. I used more exaggerated colors like fire tiger. I caught fish on everything, to be honest. There was nothing that stood out, I would say. So really experiment on your own. But where I had the most success was fishing some of these islands and the points, especially if the wind was blowing into the point. Casting right towards the edge or along the side, parallel to the point, seemed to do pretty well. And the majority of the fish we caught were smallmouth bass. They were pretty aggressive. It took a little bit of time, like I said, to locate some of the bigger ones. And one thing to note is, you know, it's not always easy to locate weed beds above the water, you know, because you can't see them. But if you can find some weed beds underneath the surface, like, you know, towards the bottom of the lake, these were the areas that were holding some of the larger fish. So again, this is where a portable fish finder, or if you have a boat with a depth finder, that'll come in a long way. We also saw a lot of big muskie, and by a lot I mean probably, I'd say 3 or 4. Didn't catch any, no surprise there. But, you know, it's nice to see some really large fish in this lake. So that's kind of an overview of what it's like to fish Trout Lake. Part of the reason I'm doing this video, and I'd like to do more, is there's just not a whole lot of information out there. And I know not everybody readily shares, you know, fishing information or their favorite spot, and it's not really about showing you where the favorite spots were, but just giving you some general idea as to, hey, here's where you may be able to save some time and focus your efforts if you're going to go up here and do a little fishing. But honestly, I love fishing. I think you probably can tell that by watching some of my other videos. But really, this is just such a beautiful area to come up and check out if you've never been up towards the French River. So highly recommend it. The name of the lodge we stayed at was Owl's Nest Lodge, and I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe got something out of it. Thanks, have a great day.